A dog has farted in this room, and I think I might expire before the end of this podcast.
My dogs don't fart. Very, very rare. And if they do, it's genteel and doesn't even smell.
I don't believe you.
No, honestly, they're remarkable. The digestive system
Hmm.
of the Cocker Spaniel is a highly refined thing. And we feed, hold on, hashtag Dr. John's Gold with extra chicken. I hope they're listening. Yeah, and that seems to do their old system. But I also do add a little bit of whatever is leftovers. So at the moment, they're also eating cabbage, Brussels sprouts, carrots, and a bit of gravy and some lamb. So they should be, if there were other dogs, they'd be smelling like a midden. But no, good old cockers.
Oh, well, that's based on those leftovers. Never mind the cockers. What's your digestive system like?
Well, I've just burnt it all off. So I think, as soon as it goes in, it's just gone at the moment. For a man of my age, I shouldn't be working so bloody hard.
Well, you've got all those taxes to pay for, haven't you?
Well, yes, and they keep expanding by the moment.
You've got this weird thing with taxes. Taxes in the UK particularly have been used as a sort of a nudge unit to steer you away from behaviour they'd rather you didn't do. So there's an extra tax on fossil fuels because we'd rather you went to EVs, and there's more of a tax on alcohol and smoking because it's bad for you. I can only assume that they don't actually want us to work then.
No.
Because that seems to be what the steering is.
Well, I think what they don't want to have happen, and if you actually look at the budget, and also a lot of the stealth taxes that have come in, everything from agricultural property relief through to the 20% VAT going on for private school fees and all the various things, is what they're actually trying to stop you from doing is being self-employed. They're trying to get you back into being employed by someone else, because I think what they don't like is, firstly, the independence of the self-employed, the small businessman or woman, the sole trader, the partnership, the business that possibly employs 2 or 3 other people. It's always been something where you've got the sort of Damocles hanging over you if you don't get the work in, or that you become sick or something like that, that you suddenly stop earning and you're in the mire. But on the flip side it was always the much more tax efficient option. You could run your vehicle through the system. You could put things through for tax, and I don't think they like that. I think they want us to stop being that independent individual. I think they want you back in the system so that you are working for either a large corporation or, better still, something within the state itself. I think they want us all, Richard, to become civil servants.
Yes, it does seem that the only thing this is worth doing is working for the state, paying money back into the state in that entirely closed circular system.
Yeah.
You don't want to be messy or anything else. So what have you been doing in your rural, disruptive, subversive life today?
Well, I have been planting hedges rather than laying them. So I like to call it forward planning, because in 8 to 10 years' time they will have to be laid. So keep yourself in work. But this one's quite interesting because half of it is on farmland where they just wanted to put another hedge because it was a rather big open and barren field. So they were putting a hedge back in that probably had been there, I would have thought, by the boundary trees that are in there. But also, I am putting in a hedge to mask the hideousness that is a solar farm. So, yes, and that is, I have to say, do you know, Richard, this is a funny thing, is when I've been doing my book tours and stuff like that, yeah, one of the repeated refrains is, "Oh, it must be lovely to work out in the beautiful countryside all the time. It's
Ah,
so peaceful." Yeah, right. Okay, this is all I have heard all day whilst I've been planting 750 flipping hedge whips was, "Keep clear, mind out, mind out, mind out, mind out," because these dudes who are working in the solar farm, they're putting all the electricity cables in. And so there's three guys. One's working in this great big 360 digger. One is working on a dumper truck, and another one is the groundsman who's basically putting all the cabling in. So he's got to sit in
mm,
this ditch. And on this 360 digger, it's got this all seeing eye that if you come within a certain distance of this vehicle on any 360 degrees of it, it sees you and goes, "Mind out, keep clear, mind out, mind out, mind out, mind." And this went on all day. And then in between bouts of when the bloke wasn't stood in front of it,
mm.
the Royal Air Force decided to fly their socking great big wastes of money over our head, doing aerobatics and other assorted pansiness that the RAF do. So they were doing sort of Top Gun impressions over us. And I thought, yeah, them people who said to me, "Oh, it must be lovely working out there in the beautiful countryside." Well, it was until modern technology came in and ruined it all. Mind out, mind out, mind out.
We say, it can't be turned off and it won't work without it.
No.
Presumably, there's a speaker there at some level. So, what if you take a flat-bladed screwdriver and just goose that speaker?
Yeah.
So it'll be
Well,
going off, but no one can hear it. Maybe dogs can hear it.
well, I think a little man actually did come out. It was the service vehicle, and I don't quite know what they're doing, but I think they were trying to see if they could turn this feature off. And he stayed all day, and it was still going, mind out, as the sun was setting at 4 o'clock. So obviously he wasn't able to do it. Although there's a very funny thing. I used to know someone who worked in a plumbing sort of professional plumbers wholesaler company, and
Mm.
they used to have a delivery driver that used to come in who everyone in the company hated because he was just an idle loafer who would drive up there and he wouldn't sort of then get out of his cab and everyone had to go and unload all the stuff. And one of the guys who worked there had been a mechanic or something. And he's got one of these things that when he put it into reverse, it went, "Caution, this vehicle's reversing. Caution, this vehicle's
Mm.
reversing." And I don't know how he did it, but he had to fiddle around with a little box that does the "Caution, this vehicle is reversing," and he changed it, and it went from like playing at 48 to 72. So instead, it sounded like Mickey Mouse going, "Beep beep, this caution, this vehicle is reversing. Beep beep, caution, this vehicle is reversing." And apparently, this bloke had no idea of how to turn this off. And so he drove around for like months afterwards. So every time he appeared was this sort of Mickey Mouse voice coming out the back of his car. And he knew someone at this drop had done it, but he didn't know quite who they were or how they'd done it, and he couldn't turn it off. So now he just did this thing, beep beep, gosh, this vehicle is passing, which I thought was absolutely that's a way to go and just get your own back on someone.
Yeah, that is. See, this modern tech for plant machinery,
Yeah.
it doesn't make anything safer, really, and
No.
it just all it does is feed into that thing that I talked about a few months ago of just to do anything on certain sites now you have to leap through all sorts of hoops for CSCS cards and construction safe and all of these other things, and you can't get any work done until you've been through an hours long toolbox talk in a porter cabin before you're allowed out to go and do your job
No.
that they don't know how to do. And they have no idea how to do because that's why you're there. And then they're asking you, "Are you working safely?" It's like, yeah, sure I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
But
believe me.
I'm sure that what somebody's done at some point is that they have worked out that the cost in lost productivity is probably lower than the potential court case from the various ambulance chasing lawyers who are waiting like vultures in the wings to swoop should anyone go and sustain an injury at work that then subsequently say, well, did you have this briefing? Did this individual have this ticket? Was this person made aware of this? Were you given this piece of equipment? Did you have this safety feature on this? And I think
Mm.
that's how you end up at it. A friend of mine who's one of the dads at Charlie plays rugby, no, as well for school. He also plays for DIS, your favourite place, Richard, DIS
Mm.
Rugby Football Club.
And
And
I'm fighting the urge.
yes, I know. Is this it? The which is really good. So you got dis, right, which has got lots of even in dis they put puns on this is the place and all this sort of stuff for a little cafe and things. But also it's next door, just over into Suffolk, into our side with I. And you think if you've got a place called I, as in eyeball, well, you've got there's more eye puns in I than you can shake a stick at. It's brilliant. I mean, but unfortunately, they haven't got an opticians. I would have just opened an opticians there just for the larks and the
Mm.
laughs. But anyway,
Mm.
no. But this pal of mine is a senior solicitor for the National Health Service, and he said that the amount of NHS money that goes on paying people for claims, he said, which are largely
Mm.
spurious, but he said we just work out that there is a threshold which we say, do you know what? It's actually cheaper to pay this shyster who is claiming for something that was nobody's fault, or they weren't actually impacted to any degree like they were, but their ambulance chasing lawyer is suggesting they were. There is a threshold where we say it's just too
Mm.
expensive to go and stand up to these lying thieves, what they basically are. He said it's just cheaper for us to go and pay up. So when
Mm.
you go and say, Wes Streeting will go and say, we need this X amount of money in the NHS budget. If what we're seeing in the county of Norfolk, where this guy was, and the counties of Suffolk, that we know just how much is being forked out. This is happening in all the counties in England. Then no wonder the NHS is just a bottomless hole, because there's basically shyster lawyers, all these no-win, no-fee lawyers who are out there. They are literally emptying the coffers of the NHS, and it's going in no pocket of anyone other than lawyers and people who don't deserve the money.
Mm. Depending on when this comes out, well, I know when this is coming out. This is coming out on Thursday for patrons and Friday for everyone else. My next Scribe Pound article might be out by then, which is I'm normally early on in the month. So I went into I was actually following on from a conversation I had a couple of weekends ago, which was people were suggesting solutions to this thing about what to do with game from shoots. If the game dealers aren't buying it, what do you do with all these birds? And one of the suggestions was, well, you just need to find a good butcher locally and then people will take them. And it got me thinking that that's not always true. There's this big disparity between different parts of the country about, disposable income, particularly at the moment. There are rich parts of the countryside and poor parts of the countryside, and it's not always easy to tell. And then even when you look at places like Cambridgeshire, so like Cambridgeshire is relatively high earning, but mostly because of Cambridge. If you get Cambridge out of it, the average wages drop right down. So you can't even look at that. So that's what my article is about. Basically, you can have half the disposable income from one county to another. Like Denbighshire to Surrey, I think we have near just over half the average earnings compared to Surrey.
Yeah, I would imagine that is precisely it. And I mean, it's also, I'll give our local butcher, Mr. Dunnett in he opens very early and he stays open all day Saturday, because a hell of a lot of butchers will actually shut at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. And I think one of the issues with butchers, and it's why people use supermarkets, is because the supermarket is open when most people have the time to go shopping. And and also, who wants to walk around with a shopping bag? If the fact is that now car parking is expensive. If you don't park in the supermarket car park, the town centres in their infinite wisdom go and say, well, we'll charge you to park. Hasten to add, I doesn't charge you to park. Although they do send the parking Nazis to put tickets on there. And I felt like going and throttling them. And I thought, no, you're only doing your job. But some lunatic in County Hall decided to send people into I to put tickets on who were probably in there shopping, and now they're going to go, oh, stuff it, I'll just go to the Morrisons in Dis instead. And so then I will slowly continue to die. And, but I think back to your butcher's thing, is that the problem with a lot of these small shops, they are not open when most people have the time to do their shopping. So it is difficult.
Yeah. It's like, if you're open 9 till 5, you are saying, and only really open in weekdays, you are saying, I never want to sell to somebody who's got a normal job.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I can sell to the elderly, I can sell to the unemployed, and I can sell to the random few who are self-employed and might go and say, oh, I must go and do that.
Writers.
Yeah, writers.
People researching the next piece.
Exactly. It is bizarre, and I know what we all should do. I mean, Claire's amazing when she goes shopping is that she's now decided as well. Not only does she only buy British, wherever possible. She's not to the degree where, I'm going to buy that very expensive coffee that's made by this art house little coffee grinding place there. She's not that, because we're not as rich as Croesus. But on the whole, it's British, and she buys usually from little independent greengrocers and butchers and whatnot. But she's now decided to buck the trend of not buying me, Kit Kats and Gold bars and things like that for penguins for my packed lunch. She is now making her own version of Snickers bars and chocolate bars. Yes.
What?
So she makes them with dates and things.
That's not normal. That's not normal behaviour.
But you see, she's decided to go and back off. Nothing that's processed food is allowed near us. So nothing that's got palm oil or anything like that is coming in the house anymore. That's her line in the sand. And and it actually works out probably slightly more expensive, but I mean, yeah.
So the next time I come to stay and we're having venison of indeterminate origin, outside on the patio, we won't be having barbecue sauce with it unless you found a way to make it.
Oh, I know how to make barbecue sauce even. Yes, there is. I have a recipe, and it involves sort of lots of vinegar and stuff. But I use a lot of Worcestershire sauce, so therefore, which is still made in England, in Worcestershire, and by Lee and Perrins, and so I use that rather than HP. And it's not hair shirt wearing. It's because you and I write a lot about how stuff should be. This podcast, a lot of the time, is how stuff should be. So therefore, if we are just sort of, paying lip service and actually living on the hog and not doing it, then we're no better than George Monbiot or a Guy Shrubsole. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that we do, but it's because Claire is a self-employed potter, and she does all this amazing stuff in between bouts of producing beautiful things. So she can do that. Let's be honest. If you're working in as a school receptionist, are you going to have time necessarily to do that? Probably not.
Interesting choice of random person to pick there. I have you spoken to a school receptionist in the last week?
My sister-in-law is a school receptionist.
There we go. Yeah. I'll say that didn't come out of nowhere. That was planted like the Manchurian candidate in your head.
Absolutely. Yes, it was. Exactly. Well, I'll tell Helen that she is the Manchurian candidate.
You and I also are old enough to remember when this used to be the norm. I should probably say that now Callum isn't on this week's episode because I wasn't actually paying attention really to his excuse as to why he couldn't come. It was something to do with work and photography in London. But I think
it's something to do with port, isn't it?
Is he on Tawny Port again?
I think so. I've never known anyone other than John Jorrocks in a Surtees novel be involved more with port than Callum. And this
No,
is crazy. He ought to have gout just by the adjacency that he has to port all the time.
no. But there was that point in the game fair where we're at one of the weird drinks parties you got us invited to, and I'm standing there sweating in the heat,
Yes.
drinking iced tawny port, thinking this is not good for you.
No, that was in the GWCT, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Coburn's. I think they had sponsored the drinks party there. Yeah, and they had various ports, which I have to say, I love port. But it to me just reeks of winter. It is not
It's
something.
not a summery, no.
No, I mean, if you weren't going to have a beer, now I know that you're quite keen on odd beers, ones you have to drink with a spoon. So if you weren't going to have a beer, right, what would you go for in a pub? So people can see you. I'm not talking about sort of your usual sherry as you mooch around the house with Amy,
like an episode of Frasier.
Exactly. Commenting on the nuttiness of the sherry. But
Yes.
if you were actually out somewhere, what would you have in a pub if it wasn't a beer?
Cider.
There you go.
Cider's a year-round drink.
Mm.
It can be light, it can be heavy, it can be cold, it can be warm. It is the universal.
Yes.
The problem is, as you get older, cider has more and more of an effect on you.
Yeah.
I think, and the sulfites particularly, but cider hangovers, I used to be able to shake off quite easily, and now they've sort of they latch on a bit.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm very fortunate is that, because not only do I try and eat British all the time, and everything's got to be British, other than my car, which, a Subaru. But, we beat Japan, so therefore I feel fine about driving a Subaru.
So you're like British cars or countries we've beaten in war.
Exactly. That's basically
that opens up the market quite.
It does
quite broadly. Actually.
Exactly. Yes. So my claret consumption is without any qualms at all. But the Aspel's cider down the road from us, although they have been subsequently bought by Coors, they're no longer the Chevalier Guild family owned. But Aspel cider has stayed true to itself. And I don't think there's sulfites in that. And so therefore you can drink it and not get a headache. But it is ridiculously strong. And if you buy their Premier Cru, which is something like 7.4%, and you go, oh, this is very Moorish, and you're sort of sipping away on a nice hot day out on the patio out there, and before you know it, you're eating gravel. It's terrible, because, I really think it's a good idea if I jump off the roof. It
terrible sneaks up on you, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
And then mugs you at the end. See, I grew up on Heelys, so things like Rattler.
Okay. Yeah.
A Rattler it's not really cider. It's sort of sugar and alcohol and regret all in a bottle. Nothing good has ever happened, but a lot of memorable things have happened after Rattler.
I'm with you on the cider, but the other thing that I could drink in a pub, I couldn't drink a gin and tonic, because when I pour myself a gin and tonic, it's quite a hefty slug of gin. And if you go to the landlord and say, can I have a quadruple gin and tonic, please? And I'll need, 2 bottles of tonic to make it so it sort of doesn't taste like toilet
Can
duck.
I have a pint of G&T,
Pint of
please?
G&T, yeah. Yeah, my sister used to drink that when she was a yuppie. Yeah, it was quite funny. But anyway, I digress. The only thing that I think I could, I'm with you on the cider, but I think I can go and drink these days, because of my advanced years, I think I can drink the glass of red wine now. I think, people look at me and they don't think he's a pretentious young man. They now think, oh, look at that dear old thing. He's probably got a dicky bladder, so he's on the wine.
Wine is a nice all-rounder as well, actually. And as you say, it's sort of, well, it's acceptable at your age, but it's just acceptable all round now as well, isn't it? It's the normal choice. It's
Well, I was out beating on the weekend, our first day at Rivers Hall, which is my favourite estate in this region, and Mabel likes it very much. And it's always wonderful when you stop for 11s, because out comes the gamekeeper. There is a
Mm.
wonderful man called Robert Graves, not the poet, but he is a poet amongst gamekeepers. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And most of the guys there seem to be related to him in some way. And his brother makes these concoctions. I mean, he's a chip off your block, or you're probably a chip off him because he's a lot older than you, because he footles around in hedges, picking stuff. But then
Ah.
he finds the most bizarre spirits to put them with. So you go, oh, what's that then? Oh, that's my damson Cointreau. You go, you what? Well, I take Cointreau and then I put sugar and damsons in it. So you've taken an orange liqueur and you've then put damsons in it and sugar. And you try it and you go, oh, blimey. It's like Tixie Licks, but with a kick. It's utterly bizarre. And then, so each time there is this strangely coloured one, and he'll go, say, I found this in the back of the cupboard, and it's brown. And you go, what is it? And you go, I think it's walnut liqueur. And you go, okay, I'll try that. And you go, I'm not getting any walnut, but I am definitely getting, I think it's Lifebuoy soap.
Yes. Well, there's two things from that. One is I have no idea where I'd actually get Cointreau. You know, if you said you've got an hour to go and get a bottle of Cointreau, I have no idea where I'd go. I didn't even think they still sold it. And then another thing is you've just broken a memory of my mate Tom trying to make a wild garlic brandy liqueur.
Oh, my Lord.
It smelt like wet spaniel.
Nice.
It was the least appetizing thing you could think of.
Yeah.
But he was convinced it was going to work. But no,
Right.
wild garlic brandy liqueur, no. If any listeners want to try that, and well, you'll have to wait till next spring, but if you want to try that, then let us know the results, but please don't bring us a bottle.
No. What was that weird thing that Avian Sandercock was saying? Didn't he make something like lobster liqueur or something weird?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, because he's tried everything alcoholic, it seems.
Yeah.
Wasn't there it was something in, where does he go to? Not the Balearics, Canary Islands. Canary Islands?
Yeah.
Somewhere overseas, somewhere foreign. Hang on.
Devon for him.
Clotted cream.
Yeah, clotted cream. That's it. Clotted cream. No, just stop it. That's not what it's as daft as putting damson and Cointreau together. I think what people do, because I can remember it's something, when Claire used to work in whiskey, the company she worked for tried to rejazzle and bejazzle Baileys, and they had to make a vegan Baileys because that was when
cow juice.
Yeah, they didn't like that bit in there, and so then they made a big deal out of the fact that it had almond water. I'm not going to call it milk because it's not.
Almond squeezings.
Almond squeezings, yes, quite. And, you think, just stop it. I mean, obviously, thank God, veganism is now like the Draylon slack. It is no longer a fashionable thing. And if you are still a vegan, then you're in it for the long haul, and I salute you. But thank God, the fashion thing of being a vegan has now gone. And you don't have a stupid extra page that no one looks at in a pub restaurant menu.
No, sort of wild game and eating venison and things like that are actually now getting quite trendy, which is all for a good thing. We were talking about that at the job I was working at today, but something else came up in that conversation, or just after that, and I thought I'm going to save this for the podcast tonight because this could go one of two ways. So let's see. So I want you to think about today's date. It is the 2nd of December, 2025. Yes. I'd just like you to visualize that now. So, how do you visualize time? So think about where you are now on our date. Where's January? Where's next January from you?
Oh, next January.
Yeah, not the one we had 11 months ago. Next January after Christmas.
It's a month away, isn't it?
But can you point to it?
Yeah, okay. 1 o'clock. If it's a clock, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. So it's over a circle. So are your years a circle?
Yes,
Or
probably, because I live a cyclical life. So yes, probably.
yeah. So this is a thing we were trying to work out. Do people who work with seasons and farmers and growers, because it was a farmer I was talking to,
Yeah.
do you see things as a just a circle? So you have a big reset at Christmas and then it all starts over again? Or are you someone and someone else there just sort of sees time as a ladder? So you're going up the ladder and the future's up there and the past is down there below you.
No, you see, I very much. That's a very interesting and
I know, it's
profound
good one, isn't
thing,
it?
isn't it? I know. I very much, because I live such a cyclical life, that I'm thinking, oh, it's nearly the hedge laying season has come around again, and the hedge laying season's here, and then I very much see that there is an arm of a clock going round, and then it comes about, and I think you're onto something there. I think people who depend upon, doesn't matter whether you're a farmer, a gardener, a hedger, coppicer, anyone who relies upon the natural world, I think they would see time in a circle, whereas those who possibly are less land based would, exactly as you see, they just see time going off a bit like the things on Star Wars at the start.
Yes.
It's something that is
It's ahead of them.
Yeah, how interesting.
I've tried this with different people over the years, and it's very interesting to hear the responses. Some people just go, "What are you talking about? You can't see time." And it's like, "Oh, well, you're a very boring person then, aren't you? I don't want to talk to you." But anyone who comes up with, "Oh yeah, well, I can see it like this," it's like, all right, there's a wedge there that's worth having a conversation with you. The next one is years. So if you think back to, say, the year 2000 from here, where is that relative to you now?
You see, that's interesting, because I think about it in seasons, as in, I'll say last season we did this, because it used to be, when it was when hunting was my job, it was, I'd say that'd be season 93, 94,
Yeah.
and the rest of the time didn't really matter, that what this is in periods, and now it's much the same. So yeah, I see years in seasons, and I hark back when I think back in time. Oh, I can remember that's when I did that hedge there. And so I think back on a landmark in it, because I can remember that year because I did that hedge then, or a landmark figure for it. But most of the time I don't talk about years, because my year is not actually 2025, then it's 2026, and then 27, and so on. I'm working season 25, 26 at the moment, So therefore, I don't really actually think that the 1st of January in a way is the start of the year. I almost see it as midway through, I suppose.
No, because I'm changing around, because I used to do more when we had the wild food business, and I used to, I was foraging commercially amongst other things. You were starting a season in February was the first time we were sending anything out, and you used to get almost depressed from November through to January because nothing was growing.
Yeah.
So there was nothing to do, and then you start looking ahead to the season, and it just builds to this crescendo in the summer and then starts to tail off again. So it was all about the growing season. And a friend is a market gardener who's talking to today. Hello, Phil. He was basically saying the same thing, because he's doing his veg boxes and all of this other stuff, but there's basically potatoes and root crops and a few other bits that are going out at the moment, but it's going to tail off, and then he'll start prepping the ground again for next year in February. Everyone must have their own little cycle of start and finish, which has got nothing to do with what are we, Gregorian or Julian calendar?
Which
one
Gregorian.
We're Gregorian,
calendar. Yeah. See, it's interesting, because I've just finished because we didn't actually go out to work yesterday because it's peeing it down. So we decided that planting hedges in the wet is dull anyway, but also where we were on that Norfolk clay, well, it just would slow us down to such a degree that it probably wouldn't have been profitable.
Oh, you'll be 4 inches taller after 5 steps as well.
Absolutely. And your spade is just, and everything's poo. So we didn't go. So I wrote my scribe hand piece yesterday, And I wrote it about the author Robert Smith Surtees, R.S. Surtees,
Mm.
most famous for John Jorrocks's character, John Jorrocks, and Facey Romford's Hounds, and Soapy Sponge's Sporting Tour. And but I noticed something when because I gone back and have started to reread them chronologically all through. I've got his entire works, and I started reading again, and I noticed in there that there was a lot of relevance for today because of the challenges that the countryside had in Surtees' time, which we're talking him sort of starting from the late 1830s, and he died in about 1865. He's writing him, so the end of Georgian and start of the Victorian, to the height of the Victorian era, really, I suppose. But it's quite fascinating because all the things that he's whinging about are all exactly the self-same factors that we see now, but because they haven't got the luxuries of modern tractors and things like that, is that you're seeing with these Surtees books is the bow to your thing, where you see that it's very much a cycle. And then I thought, well, it's not only a cycle that he's talking about, but the whole countryside is a cycle, because we're going through one of them phases at the moment. We're back in Shitsville at the moment because of forces beyond the control of us who actually work that land, that we're going through an agricultural depression because of politics. And he's writing around the time of the repeal of the Corn Laws and a crash in agricultural productivity and profitability, because they're going through an agricultural depression. So I'm reading a book that was written in 1845, and it's exactly relevant today. Yes, it's a bit long-winded and Victorian in its language, but the subject matter could have been written this week by one of us in Scribehound. And so I wrote it about that. So it's rather apposite that you had this conversation with your mate about time and the future and the past.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's the cyclical nature of these events. There's that overused phrase that does get used a lot by people who, for some reason, are obsessed with jiu-jitsu and lifting kettlebells, which is
ouch.
Hard time. Yeah, ouch. Ooh. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times, or something like that. That's the sort of 4-stage cycle. But I read a thing on it's one of these things you read on Twitter, and then you go and read it and go, oh yeah, actually quite like that, and you can't remember who sent it to you, where it was, so I can't reference it. But it was talking about this thing of collapse of empires, because everyone's talking about, actually, are we at the end of the American empire? Is it collapsing like Rome did? And one of the bits the author brought in there was about cycles. And you actually get cycles within an empire. But what happens is the cycle rate gets shorter. So you get the same things happening every 100 years, but then it's every 85 years, and then it's every 50 years. And as that cycle gets shorter between similar things happening, that's sort of the doom spiral of an empire.
Yeah.
So maybe if we're doing it for the rural side of things, 1830s, 1840s to 1920s, I suppose it would have been, and then 1920s to 2010. Are we losing a decade every century?
I think so. And I think it's one of those things that we probably have been a bit feather bedded here in Britain, because although we have had depressions and downsides, really, I suppose probably since the Elizabethan era, we've been pretty mustard. Yes, we went and got our empire, and we did all this wonderful stuff, and we've got to face the fact is that, yes, we can slag off Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. It's very easy to do. I mean, it is so easy to do. I mean, it's almost, candy from babies territory. But all they have done is hasten the end. That's all they've done. It's not like they've caused this great big malady that we've got in this country. Their ineptitude has just sped it up. And probably the genius of Rishi Sunak, and let's be honest, it was largely him, is he managed to paper over the cracks more effectively than any other chancellor for a long, long while. But we've been on a slow spiral into
Yeah.
shitness since we won the Second World War. That's
Mhm.
basically what's happened. And we've been going, and then this lot came in and went, bang. And this is the crash. I mean, that's the acceptance of it. And I think perhaps Britain is going to have to get used to the idea that we're actually a bit shit.
Mm.
The countries like Italy and Poland that we used to laugh at 10 years ago are now the country that we were 10 years ago. And we are now in the Italy and Poland territory. And we just ought to perhaps accept our fate. And if the cycle analogy is correct, then we will start to spiral up. Will it be that this will be instigated by a storming reform government? Probably not. What they'll actually have to do is they're going to really inherit the shitville, and they'll have to make such hard decisions. Everyone's going to hate them, and then probably the Conservatives will come limping in like the sort of, when you have one of those horse races where you've got three hot favourites, and you've got one thing that looks like it should be pulling the beer wagon for Whitbread, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you've got the three hot favourites, and they're racing around, and the poor old cart horse is three fences behind. And basically, the three hot favourites bring one another down at the second last. And good old Dobbin is lobbing along. I think that's what the Conservatives are going to be like. They're going to be like this old Dobbin is. They're going to come back and they're going to say, hello, we're back now. We're going to go and just sort everything out because we'll have all great excitement with reform. Everyone's then going to go, I don't like them. They're telling us the truth all the time. It's horrible. We don't like it. Have someone who's going to sort it out. And they'll be like, Nanny McPhee. The Conservatives will come back in with some man in a grey suit in charge and go, okay, let's sort it all out.
Well, with any luck, we'll be at war with Russia before then anyway, so it'll just distract everyone, won't it?
Well, it will do. Yes, I mean, that'd be great. Did you see the Ajax armoured fighting vehicle thing?
Yes.
I mean, yes, so that's what we're going to be facing the Russians with, which...
They'll hear us coming.
They will hear us coming, and you can see, why are the British? They're getting out of that vehicle. Now they're running around in circles. They've all fallen over. What's the matter with them? They goes, oh, it's all right. It's just Ajax. Yeah. And I saw a brilliant thing. There's a very very funny feed which you can see on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram called Fill Your Boots.
Yes.
And it's run by an ex-Lance Jack in the parachute regiment, and he is very, very funny, and he collates a lot of squaddy humor as well as having his own on there. And he did this brilliant thing because apparently in typical indomitable British way is that about 3 days before this thing came out that Ajax was absolutely shit and is basically killing its crews, it came out that the people who were all the civil servants and the civvies who were responsible for the rollout of Ajax won some award at some sort of bean counters thing. Yeah. And they had this sort of photograph of them all saying, hey, we've won this award for the rollout of Ajax for the British Army. And he just put one up there. He goes, oh, it's great to see that one of the squaddies who's actually a member is a crewman on one of these vehicles took this photograph, and it's just this blurred thing.
The whole Ajax thing, there's a really interesting couple of posts from eye test professional Dominic Cummings.
Yes.
Over on X, which he talks about they tried to kill Ajax in about 2020.
Yeah.
And why it and it was who pushed it forward and made it happen and how it's completely out of date, which is kind of in keeping with what with what modern warfare looks like. Vehicles moving around slowly on the battlefield aren't really a good place to be anymore. We've kind of had that, and it doesn't really work anymore. But it's very interesting looking at how defence budgets come about and how even with everything we've had in the last 10 days since the budget, there's a lot of stuff that we don't hear about very often as well. It's there if you want to go digging, but the information that hits the headlines isn't the whole thing. So it just makes you despair of any kind of sense of how our money is going to be spent. But I don't know, we've got all sorts of things to look forward to, like war and famine and poverty and all sorts of other things. So we're going to go and talk about that in the after show, because I've got something that was relayed to me today, which I think will be quite good. So we'll go over to that. For the general public, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. And Callum should be back next week, and we're going to hopefully do our Christmas episode.
Ho, ho, ho.
Pre-Christmas, anyway. Right. Bye.